Hello, I'm Aaron from 38535A, and today I'm going to be continuing the series on going over our programming and autons. And today I'm going to be talking about our low mid split autons that we created kind of at worlds, but and then only for worlds. So this was for the left and right sides, and the premise of these autons was they would have a quick approach going into the match order, so that's driving at the match order and then turning with speed and then going on the goal and then hitting the middle goals later. So that was the premise of these autons. And then there was one Joker auton I'll talk about. So the first auton I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about the slower paced ones we had. So we had ones that were designed for quals and elims. So what that meant is that the qualification ones were designed around consistency and scoring as many points as possible, versus the elimination ones were in getting AWP, and the elimination ones were around scoring more points and executing at a faster pace. So I'm going to show you a video of the qualification one working really quickly, and then I'm going to go over its code. So right here, it drives, goes, gets the blocks from there, scores them up there, turns around, and then hits the low goal and scores them, goes around for a wing, and then goes in. So pretty standard Auton, but let's see how it works really quickly. So this is a right side, yeah. So this is a middle slow, yeah. No. Okay, it might have been okay. Yeah. So basically, ignoring that this says quick approach, it used to not be a quick approach. I think I did that for eliminations at Worlds, actually, so when I made that change. But it follows the standard convention of most of the autons. Basically, starting with DSR, it's setting its location, setting full power in the thing, and then to exhaust index. It's going to the match loader, providing some pressure against it, using chassis tank, which I would say I use on most of my autons. Pretty standard. I kind of do that so that the match order is more consistent in the autons. And then I'm moving to the long goal with a certain min speed and early exit range, just to make the movement more linear and more consistent. Kind of so that it doesn't kind of so that it does not kind of like drift around and cause a bunch of issues. I'd rather have it hit straight on and be bent a little bit like this. Like when it hit like this, the reason it hit in this way is because of the aligner and not because of the movement itself. But yeah, just trying to get that really straight approach into the goal right there. So that's what that looks like. And then I'm swinging off of the goal. So the reason I'm swinging off of the goal and at a lower speed is because I want to align the robot to the blocks in the logo right here. So as you can see, if you did a turn, like in some of my other movements, what ends up happening is that it doesn't cover enough distance. It doesn't make the correct arc to face that local. So when you do a swing and you lock one side of the drivetrain, instead what it's doing is it's swinging into place, right? To face the center of the field, which I think it's doing. Yeah, so the logo, oh, so it's going to actually face the entrance point logo. And then it's basically just moving towards it with a certain max speed so it doesn't hit the logo at full power. Obviously, it still hits it with a little bit of energy because it locks itself into position using our logo aligner, which I will talk about in the robot explanation video if you go look at that. And then it goes up a little bit and then it swings. So the reason I do that is because I don't want it to cross the Auton line, so I have it move up a little bit before it swings to go do its wing movement. So as you can see, it goes a little bit higher up. This is hard-coded in because I didn't have enough time to give it a position. It then swings. It's a pretty standard swing, and the swing lets me cover some distance, and I'm relying on the wing aligner to stop it. As you can see right here, the wing aligner is pushing into the goal, but since at Worlds, the goals were kind of like mounted into the ground, it kind of just bounces it off, and it's ready to go. And then it's kind of just moving forward. So I'd say pretty simple Auton, and then it's breaking the chassis, so holding it into place. So yeah, pretty simple Auton. The next one I'm going to go over is this one right here. So this is the left side variant, and so it's also a split where it scores the long goal and then scores middle goal and then it wings. So let's go over that one. Yeah, so it's right here. Left, middle, wing, fast. Yeah, this is the one I want to talk about. So, quick approach left. It's the same thing as quick approach right. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm doing something called momentum turn, where I'm using the momentum of the robot while turning to have it align into place. This makes the movement quicker. I think a really good example of this is 1010G. If you go look at their Autons, what they do is they do the exact same thing I do, where they have some momentum and then they turn into it. So if you go look at their mecha video, for example, you'll be able to see that. I really like that behavior, so I emulated it for my Autons. And the way that I did that was I kind of just would have it go to a certain position. I'd tell it the current position in the x coordinate. And the reason I did that is because it would always be based on the starting location when I would do it. So I'm telling it the current x coordinate. Made that more consistent. So basically telling it the current x coordinate would make the movement more consistent and it'd keep it really, really linear, kind of going into that movement. And then what I'm doing right here is I'm moving to a point, I'm giving it a certain min speed so it stays above a certain velocity, then a decently high early exit range to make it make the movement more consistent so it doesn't have weird exit parameters. And then I'm turning while it still has momentum due to that min speed. And then it kind of looks like that. So it's turning, it's not at the match loader, but it's almost there. And it's turning, and then it's at the match loader when it's done turning. Fun little fact about this video, 1698B is actually at that practice field in the background with the China team that they paired at, so that was pretty cool, seeing them make their Autons together. So then basically the bot's like going up and it's going at the goal. So that is I think that's just a regular move to point. Yeah, move to point with long goal. Pretty simple. I'm using the tank command, as I said before, to provide some pressure against the long goal so it keeps itself there and doesn't bounce off of it. And then after it's done scoring, it's going to use a distance sensor reset. So basically the reason for that is because there might have been some inconsistencies caused with that first movement. So I just want to get that smoothed out using a distance sensor reset. The next thing it's doing is it's turning. So it's doing the same type of turn movement that is present on my stops. And it's basically just turning into location for those blocks and then driving over them. Obviously it didn't, I was still tuning it in this video, so it didn't get everything that it needed to, but you guys get the idea. So it's going to turn towards it, turn to the point of it, and then move at the block trio, and then turn around to face the goal, and then kind of drive into it, and then score. So I'd say this is pretty simple. One thing I would like to say is that this function was made asynchronous, the middle goal approach, and the reason it was because I could asynchronously send the conveyor back to prime the blocks to be able to be scored, so I didn't have to wait for the movement to complete, and then wait for the blocks to prime, and then start scoring the middle goal. And the next thing I did was basically I would have it move backwards and then swing into position, right? And then go and wing the rest of the blocks in. So that's kind of what that was, and that's around 10 seconds. So not super competitive. I definitely think this Auton could have been made faster, but I also made it at the practice fields on the last day of Worlds, so I think it was relatively good for what it was. Yeah, so I'll talk about that really quick, and then one thing I did do. So right here, what this is I am basically telling the... So when you have any swing movement in lemlib, the way that it works is it locks up your drivetrain side. So I can actually show that really quickly. When you use a swing, it locks up your drivetrain side. So it sets the brake mode to hold on the drivetrain side. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm overriding that behavior. And I'm setting it to coast. Now the reason I'll do that is because it will set a larger arc when it makes that swing movement, if you unlock the drivetrain. So I was able to cover more distance when I was doing that approach right there. It also made the movement smoother. I think it was locked in this, or maybe it was set to brake because I see it moving a little bit. But it was able to make the arc bigger instead of being too tight and then going over the Auton line and stuff. And it would hit the goal alignment a lot more consistently when it was not set to hold. So the reason that was the reason that existed. And then and I had it commented out because I think I disabled it at some point. And then it was going to move to the wing end low right here. So Yeah, that's basically just a simple like move to point command. I didn't do a break chassis. I probably should have added that on this thing if it was holding in the oh, if it's holding in the chassis. I should have probably done this so that it sets the motors to hold. So okay, the C line autocorrect is a little interesting. But yeah, something like that. Okay, so next Auton I'm going to talk about in this little segment is our Joker Auton. So it was kind of like the same thing as the slower one that I showed you before, but it was slightly different, and it was meant to be used in more competitive context. So this right here, so I'm on the practice. This is a private practice field in the hotel that I was staying at, and I think we're in on the practice field now with 4610Z, who we teamed up with at Worlds, and that's not really that important. But basically, the way this Auton works is it goes, it hits the match shoulder, hits the goal, it wings, and then it waits, spins around, and then hits the low goal. So the reasoning behind this is, if people saw us using our other Auton, they were going to assume that we were going to run that slower one, and they were going to go for a wing rush or something. So we would beat them out on the wing rush, and then a lot of the half of the teams that ran wing rushes, oh my god, that ran wing rushes, what would end up happening is that they would set their drivetrain to hold even after they lost a wing battle, and they weren't able to detect it. So they wouldn't move forward to regain that wing position. So knowing that information, we would decide we could safely abandon a wing position, knowing that we won the goal, and the other person wouldn't actively try to take it back. So that was the reasoning behind this Auton. So let's watch it really quickly, and then I'll go to explaining how it works. Yeah, so as you can see there, it goes and it does that quick approach, which I talked about. It's the same thing for the left and right side. I actually talked about exactly how this quick approach in specific worked in the SOP, since it shares that movement with both of them, since I used the modular Auton components. And it goes up here, scores the blocks, and then does the wing movement. This wing movement is taken from the 7-block rush, if you want to go look at that video specifically, since that's where I go over the implementation details of it. One thing about a lot of Autons, they share a lot of components. So that's one thing I did to speed up my Auton development. I actually made this Auton on the bus to Worlds. So yeah. And then it goes back slightly. And the reason it goes back slightly right here is because if I swinged immediately, it wouldn't cover enough distance because of the physical wing aligner hitting the goal. So I had to move back a little bit. Go spin around. That was a swing movement, typical swing movement. Grab those blocks and then go to the low goal and score them. So yeah, that's how that Auton looked. So let's go over how it works. If I can find it, I think it's this one. If I'm not 100% sure, it's not. Yeah. So this is actually a right side Auton. Yeah. Elim's right middle fast is I think the one it's called. Yeah. So here we go. So quick approach right, modular Auton call, and I'm using chassis tank to press against the match loader, so I have time. And then I'm performing DSR in case anything, any like things happen with the odometry in this little movement. Get that sorted out using DSR. And then move to a long goal. Pretty typical. I've talked about this before. Nothing really crazy with this movement call. Using chassis tank to provide some pressure against the long goal. Put up the match loader. And then the wing movement, obviously borrowed from, well, it's a modular Auton component, but developed for the 7-block wing rush. And then right here, so in the beginning of the Auton, I set a 10-second, or maybe it's not 10, I think it's like a 11-second timer. So Leno has a timer class, and all it's doing is it asynchronously, it counts down time. And I'm basically just waiting until this timer is done, checking it every 50 milliseconds to not over schedule anything on the pro scheduler or whatever it is. And then I'm basically just waiting right here. And then what I'm doing is I'm moving backwards, so move to point, or not technically forward, oops. So move forward a little bit, and then swing to the block break trio. So the reason I did that instead of local is because the local coordinates were slightly off, because I figured out that not the actual local coordinates made it movement more consistent, but the block movement was more consistent when I told it like its own separate pair of coordinates. So that's what I used. Yeah, so basically just swing towards that. Set a relatively high min speed. I did that so it could have a little bit of lateral movement when it was making that swing. Otherwise, it wouldn't swing enough. I think it might have been slightly too high right here, so that might be one thing to change. But I felt like it was pretty good most of the time. And then move to the low goal to end it off. Yeah, toggling the low goal and then just sending all the blocks out. So that's kind of how that Auton worked. We did run this in eliminations. We actually won Auton in our round of 16 because of it. But then we lost round of 16 without a single goal. So fun times. Next one I'm going to talk about is the logo mid-goal Auton. So this Auton, it kind of like abandons any use of the long goal. And the reason I did that was because I thought that it might have some sort of strategic importance if we could get to the middle goal fast enough. In reality, I didn't run this Auton at all. And the reason I didn't is because the robot had consistent jamming issues, even with the logo funnel if there were 7 blocks inside of it, which there was when it approaches the logo. Well, I'm just going to play a video and then explain how it works. And this video was taken at Niles North during a scrimmage. So, yeah. Yeah, so as you can see right there, it goes to the match loader, puts it down. So this was meant to be a qualifications Auton simply because it was slower. It wasn't meant to go travel at the really high speeds that it normally does. And it's putting some blocks into the logo. As you can see, it only puts one, even though we had a logo funnel. As I said before, we had jamming issues, so it only got 1 block in there. And then even though it hit 321B right here, we're still able to go and approach the middle goal, score some blocks, and then it would put the middle goal D score up and kind of push them in. So even if someone had some blocks in there, as you can see, I think 333Y had scored a block in their Auton. We were able to take it out and secure that bonus using the middle goal D score. So yeah, they had 2 blocks in there and then they had 0. So I'll go over how that one worked really quickly. So I think it was called middle low. Yeah, so here we go. So basically just driving to the match loader, toggling the match loader, turning to it. No quick approach, since the quick approach is more inconsistent and I didn't want that quick approach messing up the Auton. I cared more about AWP than execution time in this context. So then I'm providing some pressure against the match loader using chassis tank. And then I'm going back to the original match loader position. So the reason I did that is because if you think about a straight line from the low goal to the end of the field, it connects at the corner of the field, and that isn't where the match loader is. So, like when the robot's here, it's in that imaginary line from the low goal down to the corner of the field. So that would be the most optimal place to turn if I wanted to go directly into the low goal. So as it picks up those blocks, it goes back and then turns around, so that it has a really straight shot and it gets all 3 of those blocks more consistently without having to put the match loader down. So that's the reason that was done. And then it moves to pose to the low goal. The reason it's moved to pose at the low goal is because the ending angle was important, and I found the move to point would sometimes kind of jerk it into position with the way that move to point works. So I used move to pose, slightly slower but more consistent in this scenario specifically. And then it toggles the low goal and does all sorts of stuff, just basically scoring on it. And then it goes back to the block trio negative. So what the block trio negative was where those 3 blocks are. If I look on path.jar.io, it's probably somewhere around here, if you go and look at the actual coordinates that I have at the top of the file. So it drives back to there, turns to face the negative positive trio, which is right here, using turn to point, and then move to point. So it's basically just moving to those blocks. This is a really simple Auton. I legitimately made it in like 15 minutes. Which is why it's like not very advanced. It looks blocky, it kind of is. It's slow, not that impressive. So yeah, and then it turns to the middle goal, moves to it. This one's asynchronous, so that I can prime the blocks to be scored in the middle goal immediately instead of having to wait to send them down and then send them back up due to our buy roller design. Yeah, so stuff like that. And then to end, I go back to the middle goal priming position. So not all the way back to the block trio, just a little bit back. I just like called it middle goal prime since it's kind of prime before it gets there, whatever. It's just how I named things. Toggle the D score and then move to middle goal again. So pretty standard Auton right there. Yeah. There were more. There was another variant of the middle goal one where it would drive all the way back from the middle goal, and then do a D score, and another one where it drive all the way back and wing on a long goal. Those were options. I don't have videos of those, probably because I deleted them when I was clearing out my camera roll. But I can kind of show how that would work if it was, since those are left sides. Yeah, so left side, middle wing. So yeah, as you can see right here, this one goes all the way back to do a wing alignment. As you can see, the Y value of 60 is pretty much correlates with you being right up here. So yeah, it would go up there to do the wing. And then we had another one where instead it would go and move backwards and then forwards to, yeah, I think right here. Yeah, move backwards, toggle D score, go forwards. So really just dependent on what anyone else was doing at a time as to whether or not we activated that D score or not. Versus like if they had a slow rush, we could wing them, and then if they had a fast rush, we would just try to lock in our control of middle goal. So that was an option for our, not that Auton in particular, but this Auton right here. So yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how that worked. And this was an optimization on the original wing movement. So I think I went over everything that I wanted to go over with the low/middle split Autons. Yeah, and then this series is going to continue with another video. I think the next one I'm going to be going over our skills routine, which was asked about a lot.